It's mock draft time here at Horseshoe Huddle as the NFL draft begins in just 2 days. So, who do we have the Indianapolis Colts taking throughout the weekend? Let's talk about it. Welcome to the Horseshoe Huddle podcast presented by Fan Nation on SI.com, part of the Fans First Sports Network. My name is Andrew Moore, and as always, I'm joined here by my partner in crime and fellow analyst at Horseshoe Huddle, Drake Wally. Drake, we've gone through all the offensive prospects, gone through the defensive prospects. We've talked about who the Colts potentially will pick at number 15 ad nauseum over the past month and a half. It's now time to make those decisions. You know, we're only a couple days away from the 2024 NFL draft. The Colts are finalizing their draft board, and we're going to get some new players here very, very soon.
Yeah, and it's just awesome to finally be at the moment, at the time when you've done all this research and you've just some of it can be monotonous, especially the game tape, you just kind of, especially when you're watching full length games for these prospects. But at the end of the day, it's all worth it, especially if they pick a guy that you want or that you totally called. It always makes you feel kind of like a freaking genius. But yes, this is such an important draft for the Colts. They have multiple spots to address, and they're still going to be young. Okay, so you've got young guys who are going to be rookies learning from young guys walking into their second, third season, some fourth with the team that are still in their mid-20s, early 20s. So it's an exciting time. I can't wait to talk about it. These are guys that we personally think are going to get selected, and hopefully it's pretty close to what we are predicting.
Yeah, I think when we reveal our mock draft tonight, I think a few of these guys at least will become Indianapolis Colts this weekend. So you guys have probably already read my mock draft on horseshoehuddle.com, Drake's mock draft that came out on horseshoehuddle.com. So tonight we're doing a little bit different. Like we talked about last night, we're alternating picks. So because of the coin toss, I got the first pick, and I'm picking all of the odd number picks as far as first pick of the Colts, the third pick, etc. Drake's got all the even numbers. So a little bit of a change up as far as it's not just my mock draft. It's not just Drake's mock draft. Kind of had to work together and plan out who the Colts could be taking. So there's definitely some change ups from both of our mock drafts, a couple of new players in there. Patrick is in the chat, the CFO, night 2 in a row. Let's do this thing. Started to feel like Norm from Cheers around here. You'll love to see it. Truitt is here as well. This ought to be fun. And he's given Stats Matt his flowers. Stats Matt in the building as well. At least we aren't late to our own show. Hey, listen, Drake was having some audio issues. It's fine. We're here now. We're talking Colts football. It's going to be a good time. Yeah, take it easy, Stats Matt. What are you doing? JB is here. The time has come. Absolutely. Sarah, also, hey, Drake and Andrew and everyone, go Colts. I'm ready for Thursday. I think we all are ready for Thursday, Sarah. So let's dive right in. Make sure you follow us on all of our socials here at Horseshoe Huddle. Like Horseshoe Huddle on Facebook. Follow at Colts on FN on X and subscribe to the Horseshoe Huddle YouTube channel. Hit that bell so you know when Drake and I go live every single Monday and Thursday night, or like tonight, special episodes like we're doing our mock draft, so you never miss an episode. And if you can't catch us live, we're on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you listen to podcasts, we're on there as well. So make sure you subscribe, give us a 5-star review so we can reach other Colts fans just like you. Also want to give a shout out to Noah. You guys met Noah last Thursday. Fantastic guy, knows his Colts football. Thanks for joining us again here, Noah. And Drake, let's dive right into it, buddy. Tonight, the Colts are doing a Colts 7-round mock draft. We've got a couple of trades in here as well for this mock draft, but I think, Drake, the overall theme of this draft is we focused on positions of need for the Colts, but you're not trying to overstep and reach for certain players to fill that need. But overall, all of these players, high-end athletes with fantastic traits, guys that you could realistically see being in a Colts uniform.
Yeah, and we went with the trends that we've seen. We went with just kind of how Chris Ballard has in his pressers dropped those nuggets, as Andrew says, as to who the Colts like. And you just, I think you really need to look at just the most recent seasons. They go after athletes, man, especially the later you get in the draft. Oh man, they start just taking swings in the dark at some of these guys because they're like, holy cow, That guy has a 9.99 RAS score. Doesn't matter about his position. Go get him because we've got all the guys we need. Now we just need a guy that we want at this point, and that's super athleticism at that point. So we feel like these are just as realistic as you can get. And even though we work together and we had different ways of approaching the full draft, even after looking at it, man, I feel like we kind of nailed it. I'm not going to lie.
It's going to be interesting to see. And guys, as we go throughout this mock draft, leave your comments in the chat, whether you like the pick, you don't like the pick, you hate the pick, and you think we're total idiots. We want to hear all the comments. So make sure to do that. Throw a like, on the video as well. Really, really appreciate it. So Drake, we did the coin flip last night. Thought it was going to tell us it was going to be heads or tails. Course, Siri failed us all, but it was tails. So I got first pick. And at number 15, didn't necessarily like the options there, but there was a team that wanted to trade up, and it was the Philadelphia Eagles looking for a cornerback. So the Philadelphia Eagles offered the number 22 pick for the Colts to move back 7 spots, and their second round pick, number 53, had to take it. So move back 7 spots. And the speedy wide receiver at Texas was still available. So at number 22, the Colts take Xavier Worthy, the wide receiver out of Texas. Obviously, we all know game-breaking speed. 4.2 140 at the NFL scouting combine, breaks the record there. Was an absolute monster at Texas all 3 seasons that he was in a Longhorns uniform. Drake, the number 1 wide receiver for Texas the past 3 seasons. He does have a little bit of a slender build, 5'11", only 165 pounds, but he never missed a game in college. So it doesn't seem like that slender frame really hurt him that much in college. He knows how to protect himself, protect his body. So you're getting a guy that comes in immediately, can stretch the field for you, gives Anthony Richardson a weapon that defenses have to respect immediately because of his speed. Comes in, will compete with Alec Pierce for that starting job at the Z wide receiver spot. And again, you're getting a more explosive on the offensive side of the ball, which is ultimately what the Colts want to do in this draft. Get more explosive, get more weapons around Anthony Richardson. Xavier Worthy there at pick 22, I think was really good value as well. And that's why I took him. Middle of the first round, you add a second round pick, plus you add an explosive wide receiver that the Colts have really shown a lot of interest in, and we know they're very high on. Xavier Worthy was a pretty obvious choice there at number 22.
Yes, and look, that's damn good compensation for still being able to snag who is, hopefully, and at least on the numbers says is a dynamic receiver, and so he is as explosive as it gets. That's all that Steichen and Ballard have talked about. He has 60 plus catches every single season since his freshman year. That's over 3 years. He's just been nothing but consistent. Okay, you didn't get that with A.D. Mitchell. You absolutely got that with Xavier Worthy. Despite that smaller frame, he was still playing some really good competition. And then he fits AR's strengths and Steichen's philosophy offensively. So love the pick, man. And getting another second rounder, that's beautiful because everything you want to do offensively, Worthy kind of fits with. So.
Yeah, 39 games played there at Texas, 197 yards, 197 catches, 2,755 yards, 26 touchdowns there at Texas. Scored a lot there at Texas, found the end zone quite often. So Xavier Worthy brings juice to this Colts team, brings a skill set that they don't really have to this Colts team as well. I think it's a very good pick, and I think it would be very interesting to see how Shane Steichen uses Xavier Worthy, not only simply as a wide receiver, but you can use him in jet motions. You can put him in the backfield if you wanted to. So really, the defenses have to respect Xavier Worthy's speed, and that's going to open so much up for not only himself, but the other wide receivers on this team. It's going to open things up for Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor. You can just do so many different things with a player like Xavier Worthy. You give Shane Steichen a a movable chess piece like that, he's bound to make it successful.
Yeah. So now what we're going to do is we're going to move on to see. So now we got an additional pick, but that's not this one. So this is pick number 46. And right now you've got your receiver. You've got the number one receiver that you need, but you really need to probably address cornerback. And I know that we've talked so much about guys like DeJean and Mitchell and Wiggins and just really high level guys like that in the draft. But Max Melton is my pick. I'm taking Max Melton, cornerback from Rutgers, and he's not typically your big, huge, athletic looking type of cornerback that fits Gus Bradley's scheme. He's not the big, longer type. He's about 5'10", 5'11". He's about sub 200 pounds. But what he does is he's incredibly fast. He's going to be able to stick with virtually any receiver on the field. He has right underneath 4.4 second speed, so it qualifies as 4.3 second speed. So he's a very fast type of receiver, corner that's not going to let the receivers get away. He can help secure the other side of the field with Juju Brents because he might be a little smaller, but he is still more of an outside corner. He had 487 snaps in 23 on the outside, but only 60 in the slot. So you're probably not going to see him in the slot a lot. He's going to be right outside on the opposite side of Juju Brents, covering those streakers, man. And he needs to work on his tackling. It's a little weak. I think that just the size sometimes kind of comes back to bite him a little bit. But he can develop with the veterans and with guys like Ron Miles coaching him. I think that's going to be a fantastic fit. And he was only targeted 44 times because he had just snuff coverage, but he only allowed 24 receptions, so he's all over the receivers. Now, again, he can kind of get out muscled a little bit. His tackling needs to improve. Probably not the best at the 50-50 ball against stronger receivers, but he has ridiculous verticals, so he can get up there and he can knock the ball away from guys that are at his strength or maybe not freakishly, strong like a DK Metcalf. So you're getting a complete cornerback in the second round. You still have another second round pick. I just think that it's time to address cornerback because it was a problem in 2023.
I love this pick there at 46, especially if Melton is available. That's one of the guys on day 2 in that second round area that as a Colts fan, you should be very, very pleased about. So Patrick being an absolute menace in the chat, as always, you love to see it. And then you kind of mentioned his size. Noah says 5'11", 190 pounds, 32-inch arms. Size is good enough for me. So yeah, he doesn't necessarily reach the Colts typical size, Drake, and of like a 6'2" cornerback with it's over 200 pounds, but Melton also plays a little bit bigger than his size, and I think that shows up on tape. Time for the stats, Matt stat of the day. Let's recycle one of this yesterday's stats. 252 yards allowed in 339 coverage snaps, only 72 yards after catch, which is pretty good. 24 catches on 44 targets, 3 touchdowns allowed, 3 interceptions, 3 pass breakups, and a passer rating of 65.7. Not bad at all. And I really like his fit next to Juju Brents as well. Drake, you brought that up. Brents is the bigger, more physical cornerback. He really likes to get down into and mix it up in those against the run, really good tackler. But Melton's got that speed. He's got that 4.3 speed. He's the guy that can kind of stick with those speedier receivers, And you talked about it. He has inside outside versatility. So, those shiftier slot guys or those shiftier wide receivers aren't going to give him as much trouble as it would a bigger cornerback such as a Juju Brents. So you already have Kenny Moore in the slot. You have Juju Brents on one side. I think Max Melton really, really fits on the other side. An absolute dog, goes after the other wide receivers. So I really do think that Max Melton is one of the better fits in this class. He's got those long arms. The size really isn't too small. He's not like a 5'9" cornerback that you're talking about here. I'm very high on Max Melton, and it seems like the more tape I watch on this kid, the more I tend to like about him.
Yeah, he just makes a lot of sense. He really does. And I think that when you're talking about just the just the sample size that you saw in college. He played on a very smothering type of level. I think that he was able to stick with anybody. And we always have to go back to it because it's just such a perfect example. You need speed on the outside. Because when you go back to week 18, you see how bad Brent's got cooked. A guy like Melton, that probably isn't going to happen with her. He'll at least be there to mitigate a little bit of the damage by getting the tackle because he'll be fast enough to stay with the receiver. So there's just a lot to love there. I love it. And you're getting a good cornerback that's addressing a huge need, and you still have a second-round pick.
Right, exactly. And I don't want to make it seem like Brent's is a slow cornerback by any means.
Oh yeah,
I
no.
mean, he ran a 4.5 40. That's really good, especially at his size. He has really long strides, so he can keep in most wide receivers in check. But that 4.3 speed is just different, and that's what Max Melton brings to the table. But you're right, Drake, because of that trade with Philadelphia, the Colts still do have a second round pick available to them. Thought about, there's still safety you're thinking about. Is Jaden Hicks still there? Probably not at this point, at pick number 53. Cole Bishop, maybe, but again, Cole Bishop is more of a strong safety. The guy that really stands out to me and a guy that just really fits what the Colts like is edge rusher Adesic Isaac from Penn State. Guy is a freak athlete. You look at him, it looks like a guy that you want first off the bus, to kind of intimidate the other team. 6'4". I think he has almost 34-inch arms, 240 pounds. So he's a little smaller frame for a pass rusher. No worries. That fits that Leo position for the Colts really, really well. So has really good burst, really good explosive numbers as well. Definitely a little bit raw. You're going to have to work with him on his game, develop him a little bit as a pass rusher, have him really develop a plan. But the Colts don't necessarily need an immediate impact pass rusher right now. Samson Ebukam coming off of his career best season. Kwity Paye and Dio Odangbo are expected to take another step over there at that big end spot. You can put Isaac as that backup Leo, and have him be a rotational pass rusher to start out as he gets more snaps. You let Charlie Partridge get to work with him a little bit more to put him in those positions to succeed. He's able to develop his game, and you could be looking at a really, really good pass rusher here in a year or two. And so this is I think the sweet spot for Isaac. Really like his traits, love his fit, especially with Charlie Partridge and what he would be able to kind of morph Isaac into. So I think it'd be an easy choice for the Indianapolis Colts to take Isaac there at 53, especially when Dio Dangbo is entering a contract year. Kwity Paye potentially is entering a contract year if they don't pick up his fifth-year option. So, you got to think about those things. So having Isaac back there just adds more firepower to your pass rush. That's never a bad thing, especially when talking about a Gus Bradley defense that doesn't really like the blitz and likes to get pressure with just 4 up front.
Yeah, and look, man, he's got everything on his RAS score checks out very, very fast for a defensive end. He possesses that high-level quickness right out of the gate for a lighter edge. Now, that's going to it's going to depend a lot on him getting by the tackles, because a lot of times, man, if the guys with faster footwork can keep up with a guy like Isaac, his size is going to work against him. But we'll see how fast he can get off the line of scrimmage. But hey, based off his tape, he has very, very good burst right off the line of scrimmage. He's great at pressuring the quarterback. He led everybody at Penn State, and that includes Chop Robinson with 33 pressures and 20 hurries. Those are both metrics he led the team in, coming off of his best career season with 7.5 sacks, and he gets impactful in run defense. Man, he had 16 tackles for loss. So, I mean, he is a dog, and we're talking about more pressure. Look no further than a guy kind of like Tyquan Lewis at, I think, the lowest. At the highest, maybe you get another Samson Ebukam. I think that he could really develop not only with Charlie Partridge, Andrew, but the rest of the guys on the front. Colts have a very good depth as far as their starting defensive front that could work with a guy like Isaac.
Yeah, I do agree, and the stat that Stats Matt is providing for us: 15.8 pass rush win rate, 82.4 pro football focus run defense grade, 9 sacks, 33 pressures, 26 run stops. So Isaac isn't just a pass rusher or he isn't just a pass rusher, I should say. He can he's very serviceable against the run, and he's shown to excel at times against the run. So he does bring a little bit of both, which is good to see. You don't want a guy that's a liability in the run game as well, or a liability as a pass rusher, and can only really impact on those running downs. So Isaac, I think, would be a great pick. He just fits what the Colts want as a pass rusher, and it just makes logical sense at 53, because as Chris Ballard always says, you can never have enough pass rushers.
Yeah, and look, what you really want to do is you want to continue to put guys behind guys like Kwity Paye, guys like Dio Dangbo. They still have to decide on Kwity Paye's fifth-year option. Putting him in a room. Don't forget about Titus Leo. He's still there. All right, kind of gets forgotten about because he got hurt and didn't even play. He's still there, and he was kind of who they want. I think that he is who they were hoping that potentially they could get for what they might do, get for Adisa Isaac. So we'll have to see. But like Ballard says, you really can never have enough, because when you take one guy out, nothing's better than putting in another guy. It's kind of like what you say, Andrew, the NASCAR package. It's going to be able to pressure QBs, especially in those third down and long situations.
Exactly. So with the 4th pick for the Colts, we're into the 3rd round. Drake, you're up, buddy.
Yeah. So let's see. So at this point, we have 3 picks?
Yes, no. It was 3 picks. We had Xavier Worthy at 22, That's Max right. Melton at 46, and then Adisa Isaac at 53.
Okay, so we need to address safety. There hasn't been that blockbuster safety signing. You might still see it happen. We'll see if Simmons and Diggs both, go past free agent or the draft here. But I think that I believe it's Dadrion Taylor Demerson from Texas Tech. He really just fits what Indianapolis needs. And I know that we've talked about, Jordan Hicks, and we've talked about other guys that are just these freakish fits, kind of at the top end of the draft. Even Tyler Nubbin, I believe. But man, Taylor Demerson, he's got this is all in 2 seasons. He's got 7 interceptions, 4 in one, 3 in the other. So it wasn't top heavy. He's got 13 passes defended, 147 tackles. Okay, this is a college corner or a college safety. You usually don't see this kind of production. 7.0 for loss. So he gets into the backfield. He defends the run well. He has elite speed. He is ridiculously fast, and he's got the long speed and the short speed and the intermediate speed. He can literally do just about anything you need. All right, he could probably play the strong safety, but good news, everyone. He can play free safety too, which is what the Colts really need help with. You got to push Nick Cross. And he's not going to get beat deep. He's going to be able to stick with slot receivers too. So probably can stick with tight ends. Guys like Sam Laporta that have the lighter frame, the more lanky frame, can probably stick with them, maybe even bully them around. A guy like Evan Ingram, he could probably get an advantage on him. So I love this pick. I love what he was able to do in just 2 years. From his freshman to sophomore year, he just showed consistency. Similar to Xavier Worthy, there was never a no-show season. There was never a drop-off right out of the gate. It was just consistency and leadership on the football field. So I think they're getting a hell of a player here.
DSG Goodbar called this one. DTD will make the Colts' life easy. You were all over this one, buddy. But yeah, I mean, Taylor Demerson, Drake, he's a really good athlete, and he's got a lot of college experience too. I think 5 years in college, almost 60 games played total. That's a lot of experience at the safety position. I mean, 240 tackles, 33 passes defended in his career, 10 interceptions. You've got a guy that maybe he's a little bit undersized, around 5'10", only about 30 and a half inch arms, but he runs a 4.4 40. really good. I think he's got like a 38-inch vertical. So you see him and he just flies all over the field, and I think he does. I think he could potentially be the starting free safety for the Indianapolis Colts. You really need to look at the entire body of work of Taylor Demerson, and he's probably not he wouldn't be the starter right away, I don't think, but he adds competition to that free safety spot with Nick Cross, Rodney Thomas, definitely will contribute on special teams as well. I think he can really help the team there. But when you look at his tape, he's explosive. The ball skills are there. He has a knack for being around the ball, especially, like I said, 33 passes defended in his career there at Texas Tech. That's a lot, 12 last year, 4 interceptions. The guy is around the ball a lot, which is what the Colts really need. They need more production from the defensive backfield. So I'm all in for this pick. I think he adds good depth to the safety room. Maybe not the starter that you're potentially looking for, but hey, there's some starting free safety still on the free agent market, and the Colts have plenty of cap space. Could make a move where you add a guy like Taylor Demerson as backup, as a special teamer, and then potentially could have a bigger role down the line. I'm perfectly fine with this pick at 82.
Yeah, so it looks like College Football Reference lied to me. They've only got 2022 and 2023. So you're absolutely right. I noticed now that I was looking there, and they've got I guess a faux pas on there. But anyway, yes, look, man, you're getting a complete player here. You're getting everything you need at safety. You need a guy to push Nick Cross. At the least, you push Nick Cross to starting levels, and then you can see if Taylor Demerson can develop. At the best, he puts Nick Cross behind him, and you've got yourself your starting free safety of the future with Julian freaking Blackman for at least a year. So I love those picks, and I think up to this point we've addressed a lot of big-time needs, and now it's time to just continue that trend.
And now we're on to day 3, and I think it would be criminal to not include an offensive lineman, especially with how much Chris Ballard praised this offensive line group in his pre-draft presser. We got to go to the well, and I'm gonna break Patrick's heart again, and it breaks my heart as well, because my heart here says Tanner Bortolini, the interior offensive lineman out of Wisconsin. My head and what I know the Colts really like, it's going to end up being Mason McCormick, the guard out of South Dakota State, and honestly, not a bad pick either. It's not like there's a huge drop off, or maybe any drop off at all. I think Mason McCormick is a fantastic guard prospect. A guy that is an exceptional athlete. I think he has like a 9.96 RAS. Just blew all of the pre-draft testing out of the water. He's a guy that has a lot of starting experience there at South Dakota State. I think he's played multiple positions at South Dakota State as well. He's and especially on the offensive line, when you talk about the guys that the Colts really like, the guys that have played multiple positions on the offensive line really stick out to the Indianapolis Colts. So Mason McCormick, 6'4", 309 pounds, has some long arms as well, almost 34-inch arms there as a guard. The Colts typically like their interior offensive linemen to have longer arms, but I do apologize. I thought he had a different starting experience at different positions, but it doesn't really matter, when you're looking at a guy like McCormick, because his resume, 70 games in college, 57 starts there at guard, and he was a consensus All-American the last 2 seasons. So you're getting a guy that has really good in pass protection, outstanding physicality in the run game, and he probably will be the backup, a backup on the interior that first season. But I'm telling you, I don't know if I expect Will Fries to be back in 2025, just because you can't pay everybody on that offensive line. Will Fries leaves, you have McCormick there. He can just step right into that starting spot at right guard, and the offensive line doesn't miss a beat.
Yeah, and look, you need at least depth behind Will Fries, right? And I think that you need guard depth altogether, because center, you're good. Okay. I think for the tackles, you're pretty good at this point because, especially with Blake Freeland, I mean, he's, can play either right or left. But yeah, I think that when you're paying Nelson, you think about Nelson's, we don't have that up in front of us right now because it's draft talk, but Nelson, Smith, I mean, what Raymond will make, and Kelly, that's a lot of money. Okay. And you cannot afford to give another 15 million to Will Fries, who, no offense, probably is having his level of play elevated because he's playing around some Pro Bowl level talent, all pro level talent. So ideally the Colts would love for this to be their long-term answer at right guard. So then you're paying a guy a rookie contract and you can let Will Fries go into free agency, a la maybe kind of like a Mark Glowinski situation, and just kind of stick with who you have here at with Mason McCormick. So I love the pick. I think he's athletic enough, and I think he's got a high enough ceiling that if it hits, it could turn into a really, really good pick in the 4th round.
And I think it's more realistic to think that Ryan Kelly gets re-signed than Will Fries does, especially when you have a Pro Bowl center there in Ryan Kelly. You're going to have to pay Bernard Ryman if he continues on this trajectory. You just can't pay everybody there on the offensive line. And before we move on, Drake, look at this stat from Stats Matt. 15 games, 832 snaps, 3 hurries allowed for Mason McCormick.
Damn.
Pretty damn good. And again, what did Chris Ballard talk about a lot in that pre-draft presser? The need to continue protecting Anthony Richardson. A guy like McCormick does exactly that. So that's my 4th round pick. Let's move on to the 5th round where Drake has our next selection.
Yeah, and I'm really high on this guy. I think that the departure of Zach Moss, I know that you do have Taylor and Hall, his ceiling and his expectations are pretty high. But Trey Sermon, man, he had a flash or two last season, but he has had very minimal impact at this point in his career. And he is a 3rd stringer for a reason, So I think that you need a running back here. And I think that you need to pick Isaac Guerendo from Louisville. You're talking about, by the way, a former teammate of Jonathan Taylor when he was at Wisconsin his freshman year. So this is a guy who knows Jonathan Taylor. He was at Wisconsin for 4 years, goes over to Louisville, and just turns into this touchdown machine. He's absolutely terrifying with his speed for how big the guy is. He's got deadly size and speed combination, 221 pounds, runs a 4.33 40-yard dash. The dude is incredibly fast. And if you give him a lane, kind of like Taylor, he's built kind of like Taylor, runs kind of like Taylor. He's going to shed through arm tackles and he's gone. You're not going to catch him. Number 1 ranked running back as far as the athleticism score per the NFL Combine. You're talking about literally the most athletic running back of the entire draft. And he can fit the role Zach Moss had, but probably with more upside. And he's fresh. He's going to be a rookie, and he can play with Shane Steichen right out of the gate. And he can also be a returner. Okay, that's a big one because now with the rule, of the kickoff being so close like that, you just need one guy to scoop out or sweep out, and he's fast enough. Everyone's behind him really fast. At that point, it's a foot race before you even get to the 50-yard line. So, I mean, he fits, okay? And you need to push Trey Sermon. I just don't think that Tyler Goodson and Trey Sermon are good enough together to pass up on a guy like Isaac Guerendo, who will probably be available in round 5, maybe 6, but I wouldn't let it slide.
Guerendo, I think, is a perfect fit with the Indianapolis Colts, and I don't know how many people actually know the backstory with Guerendo and Jonathan Taylor, but it goes back pretty far. And Guerendo and Taylor are actually very, very close. So to kind of reunite those two, both were in the backfield at Wisconsin together. Guerendo he's a local kid. I think he's from Avon, Indiana as well. So you're bringing kind of for the 2nd year in a row, Juju Brents was from Indy. Guerendo is from Indiana. So you bring him back to his home state, to his home team. But you want to talk about blazing speed. This came up a couple, I don't know if it was, I think it was a couple of seasons ago. It was in 2021 during Jonathan Taylor's, breakout season and his all-pro season. Jonathan Taylor I think was asked about his top speed. He reached like 22 miles per hour, 22 point something miles per hour on a specific run. And Taylor said it wasn't good enough. He wants to reach 23 because there was a running back at Wisconsin that reached 23 miles per hour on a run. That man was Isaac Guerendo. So you're getting a guy with elite speed to pair with Jonathan Taylor, who already has elite speed. That's a dangerous 1-2 punch at the running back position. Then you don't have to run your $14 million running back into the ground. You can preserve Jonathan Taylor throughout the long season if you give some carries to Isaac Guerendo, so that way deep into the season, when you really need that $14 million a year running back, Jonathan Taylor is still fresh and ready to go. So love the pick. Love around the timeline as well. If you can get Guerendo in the 5th, I think that's really the sweet spot for Guerendo in this draft. And it just adds to that already impressive running game for the Indianapolis Colts. We talk about Taylor and the offensive line, but this year we're finally going to see Anthony Richardson with Jonathan Taylor. Then if you were to add Isaac Guerendo on top of that, well, buddy, that's just speed. And you look at this draft class, we've already added Xavier Worthy, fantastic speed. You add Guerendo to that as well, that's just more speed, more explosiveness. You're accomplishing exactly what the Indianapolis Colts want to do in this draft class. Here's another stat from StatsMat: 132 rushes for 810 yards, 11 touchdowns, also had 22 catches for 234 yards. So love the Guerendo pick. Feels like he really rounds out that backfield there with Jonathan Taylor. So Drake, let's move to the 6th round here. And oh, I forgot. We haven't done a lot of trades. We've only done one trade from Philadelphia there in the 1st round. It's time for another trade. Let's add a couple of late day 3 picks. So a team that I thought might want to move up, Miami Dolphins. So the Colts end up sliding back 7 picks in the 6th round from 191 to 198. And we also haven't addressed linebacker. So the Colts end up going with Jordan McGee, the linebacker out of Temple, a guy that I think really fits well with what the Colts want, because McGee brings that coverage linebacker aspect. He's about 6'1.5", 32-inch arms, 232 pounds. So he's a little bit bigger than what the Colts typically have at linebacker. But man, he's got that athleticism. He's able to cover from sideline to sideline. He's going to be an outstanding special teams player from the jump, something the Colts really admire and look for in these running backs on day 3. Because look where Zaire Franklin started out. Look where EJ Speed started out. Jordan McGee can be the same way. He's a very smart linebacker, 44 games played there at Temple. And if you guys don't know, when you wear the number 0 jersey at Temple, holds a really significant honor as far as actions on the field and off the field. McGee wore that 0 jersey, the same jersey that Rock Ya-Sin wore in his final season as well. So for me, McGee, he gives you more depth at the linebacker position. He's a developmental prospect, has an immediate impact on special teams, but can be that coverage linebacker that you've been searching for.
Yeah, and we do have to say this again. Like, look, Zaire Franklin and EJ Speed, they are the starters, okay. But you do need to have another guy with Saguna Luby who can cover, and especially in today's NFL when you've got, every team's got a blocking tight end, but they want to wheel out, if possible, more often than not, the receiving tight end. So you got to have guys that can cover. And the guy has an 87.2 overall defensive grade. He's very versatile. He can defend the run. He can cover on a pretty damn good level. And I mean, he played fantastic football in 2023. He had 80 tackles, 14 for loss, which is really impressive. 4 passes defended, a fumble forced. He had 3.5 sacks. He's played great football. His last 2 seasons at Temple played great football. And I think that you're getting a complete linebacker. And again, you cannot have enough guys on the defense who can cover anymore. So I think that this is a good fit, and it's going to take a little bit of the burden off of guys like EJ Speed and Zaire Franklin when it's 3rd and long.
Exactly. And I think McGee projects more as a Will at the NFL level rather than a Mike linebacker, because while he does have that like 232 pounds on him. His frame is a little bit more slender, but I mean, still, you're getting a guy that I think really fits this locker room, fits what this linebacker group needs. And I think it's just a solid pick there on late on day three, especially for a guy that can contribute at a very high level on special teams.
Yeah. And all right, so now we're going to go into round 7, and because of the pick, because of the trade with Miami, we have a second 7th round pick that Andrew will conclude with. But I think at this point, you did get yourself a guard. You got yourself one of those interior linemen to push Will Fries. But Andrew kind of like explained this to me before the show. At this point in the draft, man, especially if you're the Colts, you're taking that entire like high-end trait philosophy and you're leading and ending with it basically. So I think at this point you're still going to want to grab a lineman if at all possible. They kind of did this with Jake Witt last season and in the 7th round nonetheless, and they did it with Jalen Jones. So it's like I think that they're going to do it with linemen this time in the trenches, and I think they're going to get a tackle. I think it's going to be Frank Crum from Wyoming. Super duper raw, high end ceiling that, my God, if it hits, you're getting yourself a guy that's just going to continue to develop. Solid run blocker, needs to improve in pass protection, though. He kind of gets thrown around a little bit for being so athletic. He's not the strongest, actually. His bench press numbers weren't the most fantastic. It was his nimbleness and agility and quickness that blew everybody out of the water. I think that's what the Colts will look after. They'll make him stronger, man. They'll get him in the strength and conditioning program. But he did allow a high of 20 pressures, which was the most on the team in 2023. So he's got to get better at pass pro. But incredible athleticism, man. A 4.94 40-second or a 4.94 second 40-yard dash, which is just ridiculous. And he had a 9.86 RAS, man. So that is a Colts 7th round pick if I've ever seen one. And honestly, man, especially after reading your rookie files on Jake Witt, it kind of reminds me of that pick too.
It does, and he's a massive human being. Frank Crum, 6'8", 313 pounds, 34-inch arms. You already mentioned it, but the athleticism that he brings, a very athletic tackle, just very raw. And he's quick. He is a bulldozer in the run game. You look at him, and that's where he does shine. Being able to just take the defender out of the play completely sometimes. But again, he's raw in his pass protection, in his technique. Those are some of the things that are going to need to be worked out, kind of along the same lines as a Jake Witt, but the traits are all there. And when you reach this point in the 7th round, a lot of these guys are just a lot of these 7th round picks are sometimes guys that you're like, you don't want them to reach the undrafted free agent market where they have their pick of the team. So you take them at this point, and you invest him. So Frank Crum, he seems like a practice squad guy probably for the first year or so as he develops, but he's got potential, and if he can really hone in on his technique as a pass protector, the run blocking is pretty much there, but in pass protection, that's where he needs the most work. If he can hone in on that, Drake, then you're looking at Frank Crum, potentially being another swing tackle for you, a guy that can be at around the same level as Blake Freeland is now. Just provide some depth along the offensive line. So yeah, I'm a big fan of Frank Crum. Love his hair. I certainly can't replicate the big beast's hair that from Wyoming, but you love to see it. So I think this is a really good pick in the 7th round. You double dip at the offensive line. Seems like a really Colts type of move to double dip on linemen on day 3. But to end this draft, we're going to go back to the pass catching well, because you added Xavier Worthy already. And Chris Ballard already mentioned, we want to have more depth at wide receiver. So with Xavier Worthy, the Colts would have Michael Pittman Jr., Xavier Worthy, Josh Downs, Alec Pierce, Ashton Dulin. That's 5 wide receivers. To get your 6th guy, I'm going with Ryan Flournoy, a wide receiver out of Southeast Missouri State. This guy blew up at the Senior Bowl, and we already know that the Colts hold take a lot of stock in what happens at the Senior Bowl. So he's got a lot of experience there at Southeast Missouri State. Flournoy he fits the size requirements that the Colts typically look for at wide receiver. He's about 6'1". He's about 205 pounds, runs a 4.40. So he's pretty quick there. Very, very athletic wide receiver, but you can also see he's a smart player too. He really excels in finding those soft spots in the zone, sitting in them, being able to catch the football, and then just consistently moving the chains. So you look at his stats: 30 games played in college, 135 catches for 1,993 yards, 13 touchdowns there at Southeast Missouri State. And he was the first team all OVC, led the team in receiving the final 2 years he was there at Southeast Missouri State, was also a team captain those final 2 years. And again, 39.5-inch vertical, 11-foot broad jump, an explosive athletic wide receiver that can help you add some depth to your team, bring some special teams acumen as well. Just really seems like a Colts pick late on day 3.
Yeah, given his 9.89 RAS, his 4.44 second 40-yard dash. I mean, look, the guy has the size, he has the speed, and he has that explosive playmaking ability to be a guy that could just get totally overlooked. And I've actually heard things about him, where there's always the chance that maybe he gets taken like in the 5th, the 6th round if somebody just does not want to take a chance on him getting taken. But look, if the Colts are sitting here in the 7th round and Ryan Flournoy is sitting right there, I love this pick because you're adding still more depth to the receiving room. I think he's probably going to compete with a guy like Ashton Doolin, probably a guy like DJ Montgomery if they decide to hold on to him. Just he's going to be more of a depth guy right out of the gate. Might even play some special teams to see what he can offer. But look, man, everything's there, and I think that if Reggie Wayne can get the highest level of potential that this guy is capable of getting to out of him, I mean, I think that Anthony Richardson's athleticism, Andrew, I think that it can really mask a lot, and it can help some of these receivers get even better quicker. And I think that a guy like him probably could flourish with a guy like Xavier Worthy and Anthony Richardson and the rest of the Colts offense.
Yeah, I think Flournoy is a really, really solid pick, and he fits a lot of what the Colts want at the wide receiver position, and it adds that final depth piece, so you're not having to consistently add practice squad guys at the wide receiver position each and every week. So that's our final pick in the draft. It was, it felt like an Indianapolis Colts draft, adding players throughout, all high-level athletes, a couple of trade backs. So let's recap what we just did at this draft, Drake. So here is the full list of picks from the Horseshoe Huddle Podcast 2024 Colts mock draft. Started out there in the first round with a trade back, but still got Xavier Worthy, an explosive wide receiver that the Colts have shown a lot of interest in throughout the entire draft cycle. Round 2, you get Max Melton to add to that cornerback room, potentially your outside starting cornerback opposite of Juju Brents. Then because of that trade with Philadelphia, you get an extra 2nd round pick and you add Adisa Isaac, a very athletic, high traitsy pass rusher that you can develop and give Charlie Partridge, who could potentially end up as a really good pass rusher for you down the line. 3rd round, Dadrian Taylor Demerson, the safety out of Texas Tech, immediately adds depth to the safety room. Mason McCormick in the 4th round, depth at the guard at the interior position, and possibly a starter at right guard if Will Fries leaves in free agency next year. Isaac Guerendo, pairing him back with Jonathan Taylor, 2 Wisconsin guys. Guerendo is a local kid as well. Explosiveness in that backfield with Jonathan Taylor and Isaac Guerendo. 6th round, you add that coverage linebacker and a guy that can play on special teams in Jordan McGee, brings a great locker room presence as well. Frank Crum in the 7th, the ultimate traits pick for a 6'8", 315-pound offensive tackle that you can hope will develop under Tony Sperano Jr. And then you wrap it all up with Ryan Flournoy, the athletic wide receiver prospect who shined at the Senior Bowl. So Drake, overall, what do you think of this draft? And what are your thoughts? What would your reaction be if this was the Colts haul at the end of this weekend?
I think that you're addressing, we're always going to be super, just like our kids, man, we're going to be super proud of our children, right? We're always going to be super proud of our mock draft. But the thing is, me and Andrew both, when we put this together, we're really trying to address the positional needs because none were greater than wide receiver or cornerback. Those were the two that were just lacking. You nail it with Worthy. You nail it right after with Melton. And then from that point on, outside of safety, the rest of those are pretty much depth picks, if you think about it. Only Xavier Worthy, really out of the gate, only Xavier Worthy, Melton, and Taylor Demerson are the guys that you sit there and look at them and you're like, okay, I expect them to start. You expect guys like that to hit their potential because those were areas of need where the Colts needed starting level talent. Now, you always want all of your draft picks to be starters, right? But with a guy like Isaac, you're adding more and more depth to the defensive ends. You're adding fast guys that can get after the quarterback. What's the one thing everyone complained about? Not enough pressure on the quarterbacks. Isaac's going to help with that. McCormick's going to put pressure on Will Fries to continue to play, make him earn that re-signing with the Colts. And if he hits, he's going to be their starter for the foreseeable future. Guerendo's a great piece to have with Jonathan Taylor since you lost Zach Moss. McGee is that coverage linebacker you need with Zaire Franklin and with EJ Speed. Frank Crum is just like Jake Witt last season. You're taking a big swing on a guy in a time in the draft when it doesn't really matter if you take a big swing. So it's low risk, super high reward if Frank Crum can hit. You can potentially get him, like Andrew said, as a swing tackle with Blake Freeland. And then, of course, there's Ryan Flournoy, which is the ultimate pick, man, as far as like you're taking just a bet on the traits and you're taking a bet on what he was able to do at a smaller school. Is he going to be able to translate it to the NFL? Can he be what they were hoping Mike Strawn could be? Can he do it? We'll have to see. I think that he's going to get great tutelage with a guy like Reggie Wayne. So I'm pumped, man. I like the draft. Above all, you're addressing the positional needs that need them and in order of importance. I think that we nailed it. That's my personal opinion.
I think it's a very, very Colts centric draft in terms of what would the Colts do, because I think there's some positions that if it was us personally, we would have gone in a different direction. But trying to think about what Chris Ballard would do with this team, and with this draft here in the coming days, I think the actual results are going to be very, very similar to what we put together here tonight. DSG Goodbar with our first super chat of the evening here at the end. Cry. Thank you so much, buddy, for all of your support. Really, really appreciate it, and all the love back to you. Want to thank you guys for all the hard work throughout this draft season. Two of the best in the biz, and we're fortunate to have you. Well, DSG Goodbar, we're fortunate to have you as a supporter, brother.
We don't have this show without you guys.
Yeah, we really, really appreciate it. Thank you for tuning in every Monday and Thursday night, or for these type of episodes as well. You guys are what allow us to do this. Right. So thank you so much for all of your support. And then Yim as well. Thanks, guys. We appreciate you for all of your super chats, all of your support. It makes it fun. This is why Drake and I come on here and talk with you guys for an hour about Colts football twice a week. Sometimes with screaming kids in the background, barking dogs in the background, the Brock Bowers train going in the background.
Literally, it's in my hometown.
Yeah. it's fantastic. And I hope that train goes by at pick number 15 on Thursday night when the Colts take Bowers. It would be there'd just be some artistry in that. But thank you guys all so much for all of your support. And you guys already know that this draft weekend is going to be essential, for not only for the Colts, but for this season, but for seasons to come. So it's gonna be a lot of fun to take in the first round with you guys and really get to see our reactions and see what your guys' reactions are to that pick and then afterwards to all the picks that the Colts get in this upcoming draft.
Yeah, and look, this is an incredibly important draft. Obviously, when you need a quarterback, that's the most important thing. But now they've got it, and they've got his backup. Okay, so you just need to start to put the pieces together. And don't forget, guys, last season the Colts had like 5 freaking rookies that didn't even play, or like Evan Hull, they played 1 snap. So those guys are coming back. So you're getting all of those guys kind of having a Dio Dengbo season where it's like their first season they were gone with injury. And then you're throwing in these rookies. It's a super young team that's super raw, and they have the right staff with coaching, especially offensively, to grow quicker than ever. And they're going to need to, because the AFC dude, or the AFC South dude, it is building as far as competition. The rest of the competition around the Colts, they've been adding talent. So the Colts are going to need to nail this draft. It's very important.
Exactly. One last question here from MGK 1024. Is Horseshoe Huddle doing any sort of live stream during the draft?
Oh.
Absolutely, we are. So Drake and I will be here live Thursday night at 7:45 Eastern. So about 15 minutes before the first round kicks off, around 8 Eastern. Drake and I are going live here on the Horseshoe Huddle YouTube channel. Really, all of the Horseshoe Huddle platforms, YouTube, X, Facebook. We're going to be live for the entire duration of the first round anyway, of the 2024 NFL draft. We're going to have some special guests on as well. I think Stats Matt is even going to make an appearance, but we're going to have some special guests come on throughout the entire live stream, and we'll be here to you'll be able to see us live react to whoever the Colts pick at 15 or sooner or later in the draft. But we will be here through the duration of the first round, streaming every single pick and talking about every single pick throughout the first round. So make sure you're here at 7:45 Eastern time on Thursday night when Drake and I go live. But for tonight, that's our show. Really appreciate everybody tuning in. And like I said, DSG Goodbar, Yim for the super chats. Thank you guys all so much. And then everybody else that has tuned in to the Horseshoe Huddle podcast throughout the draft season. We appreciate the hell out of every single one of you. If you haven't done so, please go follow us on all of our socials, like Horseshoe Huddle on Facebook, follow at Colts on FN on X, and subscribe to the Horseshoe Huddle YouTube channel. Hit that bell so you know when Drake and I go live every Monday and Thursday night, or like tonight for those special episodes so you never miss us. And if you can't catch us live or on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you listen to podcasts, we're on there as well. So make sure you subscribe, give us a 5-star review so we can reach other Colts fans just like you. Drake, the big thing that you've got out there on horseshoehuddle.com now is your personal mock draft. So without giving anything away, kind of give us your thoughts behind your draft and maybe some positions to look out for.
For mine, I kind of followed the same logic as this one. I really tried to do what I think, 2 things. What Chris Ballard would do, because it's not just Chris Ballard. I mean, you see those shots of the war room. There's like 45 freaking people in there, including Carly Ursay and Kalen Jackson. So I mean, everybody's in there. So I try to draft the way I feel like the Colts will, and I also draft in the manner that I think by the time 15 comes around, their top guys are gone. So I then after that, I think that some positions to look out for: linebacker. I've got a prospect that I really like, and double dipping. I double dip at 3 different positions. So I try to get. I think I got 10 picks. So go check it out, because I think that some of the later picks are very similar. Maybe not the same exact guys, but the same reasoning behind our mock draft as well. I kind of follow the exact same logic. So
yeah, definitely check out Drake's mock draft. It's fantastic. Mine came out on Monday. Did a couple of trade backs in this one, but collecting explosive, high-end athletic talent was the name of the game in my mock draft, and was able to look at a lot of the positions that the Colts need and get some quality talent at those spots. So my mock draft came out on Monday. Drake's came out on Tuesday, and Horseshoe Huddle isn't done. Our editor Jake Arthur, his mock draft comes out tomorrow, as well as Noah's got a mock draft on the way this week, and then Zach Hicks wraps us up with his mock draft Thursday morning before the first round kicks off. So all of those mock drafts are going to be live on horseshoehuddle.com. Make sure to go there and check it out before the big weekend. Go follow Drake at DWalsterDrake. You can follow me at Andrew Moore NFL, and we'll be right back here live Thursday night for the first round of the NFL draft, 7:45 Eastern is when Drake and I will go live. So I want to see every single person there for the first round, especially there around pick 15, so you can see Drake and I's instant reaction or instant analysis on the pick. It's going to be one hell of a time, guys. So until Thursday night, Colts fans, enjoy the final few days before the 2024 NFL draft kicks off, and then we'll have new Colts players to talk about. We'll see you on Thursday night.